it's an issue of 1 millimeter or so that makes our skin appear the color it is. But what was mentioned that basically it's an issue of 1 millimeter or so that makes our skin appear the color it is. But once you go beyond that 1 millimeter, every human being is identical for 99.9 or some other very high percentage. You cannot see the difference between one human being or another. The whole thing is just a function of few millimeters of the surface that makes the color appear what it is. But then, here was the punchline. And then he said, and the role of the skin color played a great thing in the human development and enlightenment and so on, went on to say that the leaders of the great European Enlightenment thought of the whites are superior than other races, and especially they considered the blacks to be inferior. And he quoted Kant, Voltaire, Juma, and others. Now, this was, when I read that, it was very disturbing for me because those people, and again, I'm targeting this more for the people who've been born and raised here, not people like me who do not even know these names when we came to this country or when we haven't studied in this culture. Nonetheless, this is the message for our youth, both sisters and brothers, so I want them to pay close attention to this. So, on one hand, those people are portrayed, are projected to be the leaders that make the West what it is in terms of enlightenment, in terms of equality, in terms of justice, equality, and the tyranny of the state, and so on and so forth, and how people need to be treated equally. Yet, at such a fundamental level, they considered the whites to be superior to the other races. And given my experience, I consider this to be a second-hand source. So when I consider this to be, if I read something like that in a newspaper or something like that, I need to go back and confirm that whether that was really said or there may have been a misinterpretation and so on. So I started reading more about this. And unfortunately, the sad fact is that those people he mentioned, and many more, indeed were racist in their outlook and in their thinking. Not only that, the irony was that those people were portrayed to be great human beings in terms of their ideas and philosophy and so on and so forth. Now, mind you, you're not dealing here with a scientist like, for example, William Shockley, who got the Nobel Prize for the invention of the co-inventor for the transistor, who had this quirky theory that the blacks were inferior and so on and so forth. We're talking about people whose job was as philosophers to bring back equality and everybody's equal, the king cannot be tyrant, and so on and so forth, and that's basically the age of enlightenment. So that was part of their agenda, part of their writing to make sure that people are treated equally or citizens to be treated equally, yet these things were there. Now given that I'm standing in the member of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm not going to read a lot of that, I'm not going to, because there are really bad things that they have written about other races, so I'm just going to give you hints here, and if you want to read more, please take the time and go and read that, and you'll find a lot of things. In Hume's case, he put a footnote on an essay of national character. This was the title of the essay. He said, "I am apt to suspect that Negroes, and in general all other species of men, for there are 4 or 5 different kinds, to be naturally inferior to the whites. There never was a civilized nation of any other complexion than white, nor even an individual imminent other than in action or speculation. No ingenious manufacturing of us, no arts, etc., etc." So that was Hume. Kant, talking about the blacks or the Negroes, the way he called it, of Africa. The difference between the two races, meaning the whites and the blacks, is thus a substantial one. It appears to be just as great in respect to the faculties of the mind as in color. Black and white, the way it is in color, the same thing applies to the faculties of mind. Voltaire, the great Voltaire. And forget about the comments he made about the Muslims. Just one thing here, he made very obnoxious comments. If their understanding is not of a different nature from ours, that is the blacks, then it is at least greatly inferior. They are not capable of any great application or association of ideas and seem formed neither in the advantage nor in the uses of our philosophy. Okay. Going through this, the defenders basically said that no one is perfect. Everybody has dark corners. Everybody has weird ideas here and there. And they were speaking in their time, and therefore they're product of that time. At that time, slavery was a big thing, big institution. They were making a lot of money out of it. So it was the norm, so one has to look at it in that context. And then PC, political correctness, is a modern phenomenon, and at time this was the extent of it. But as I was thinking through this, the shock that I discovered by reading these things, I realized that we had a far more superior, perfect human being that we need to study and consider to be our role model, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is the message for our youth and young people. So many things came to my mind, and I'd like to share that with you so that we can put this thing in context. Number one, he came in a time in which classes and the status within the society was very much institutionalized. The tribe of Quraysh considered them to be superior than others. Yet he belonged to the most noble one of them, which is Quraysh, but he started with the weak and the meager, the slaves, the people who are downtrodden to the earth. When the Qurayshis told him that we're not going to come and talk to you with these people present there, he ignored them, he kept that company with him, because that was his message. He not only, the second point which is really very critical here, that he did not only spoke about these things in theoretical context, he rather implemented it and demonstrated that in his own life. The change that he brought was so dramatic and not only spanned generations, but affected the humanity as a whole. And here are some few examples, given that today is the 27th of Rajab, and many people in the Muslim world celebrate Isra al-Mi'raj. This is something to remember about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Zayd bin Haritha, before the abolition of giving lineage to adopted son and daughter as the way the tradition in the Jahili times, in the pre-Islamic times, Zayd was a gift, as a slave was gifted to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam freed him up. His parents did not blame him. He said, you have a choice to be with your family or remaining with me. He chose to remain with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he used to be called Zayd bin Muhammad, Zayd, son of Muhammad, given that he was adopted son of the Prophet ﷺ. As I said, this was before the prohibition of that. He was dark because his mother was black. He was basically a black person. But he had tremendous love and affection for him, like the Prophet ﷺ, and as such with that he was called Zayd bin Muhammad. Bilal and Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu. This is a hadith in a siyah in which Abu Dharr and Bilal had an argument among themselves, and as they started calling, in the heat of the moment, there was some calling of names, and Abu Dharr called Bilal Ibn Sauda, O son of a black lady. Bilal radiallahu anhu complained that to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded Abu Dharr and said, "Ayyartahu bi ummi." You called him by his mother. Innaka imrun fika jahiliya. You are a person who has jahiliya in you. Jahiliya means that you're an ignorant person. What's the reverse of ignorance? Enlightenment. The philosophers I mentioned, they were the leaders of enlightenment in this context. And here, the Prophet ﷺ is declaring that distinguishing someone or calling someone names because of the skin of their color or the skin of color of their mother is an element of jahiliyyah, is a sign of ignorance. Giving, and examples are there, I'll just mention a few of them and then I'll move on. Giving the status to the slaves and weaker people, Salman al-Farisi, when there was no one to compare, there was no group to look for him, the Prophet ﷺ said, Salman belongs to us, Ahl al-Bayt.